Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. I don't know if you know this, but it is the most wonderful time of year. It's Christmas time. Dave, how are we doing today?
Just fine. Ho, ho, ho. We're at Christmas. We got a lot of Christmas tournaments coming up. We have some time off. We're not going to be doing the show on Thursday, everybody.
Yeah, no Thursday show. This is the last episode you get for a week.
Yeah, so enjoy it. I'm sure we got a lot to talk about, though. A lot of Bloomfield Christmas tournament talk, some Cape tournament talk. We've got just all kinds of basketball that's been happening, and man, it is just rolling through this basketball season.
Yeah, once you hit to like mid-December, I feel like everything just really starts to ramp up, and it doesn't slow down until February, it feels like.
Yeah, you're trying to keep track of all these games, and I'm like, oh, well, they play. I missed them playing, on Thursday or whatever. Yeah, it's just a lot of games and a lot of teams to keep up with, a lot of stuff going on, and we're doing our best.
Yeah, let's just start going through some of the games that I've got highlighted. So just kind of moving down through regular season, starting on Thursday, we had Twin Rivers playing Van Buren, ended that game 75-67.
I've been high on Twin Rivers, and that's a good win for Twin Rivers. They've won 6 of their last 7. Win this game in overtime. It's two teams that I think are pretty evenly matched. I mean, they are just both of them are very well coached, very fundamental teams. They can shoot a little bit and get after you and guard, and I'm pretty impressed with both teams. I think both teams are. We'll talk the Christmas tournament later, but I think both teams are just good teams, and that was a good game. And it'd be kind of nice to see them match up somewhere in the Christmas tournament.
Yeah, it's really funny. What's the buzzword we've used all season? Parity. It's very funny to see that kind of our 7, 8, and 9 are all playing each other very close for the BCT, and I'm actually kind of surprised about the score total, but at the same time, I'm not, just because we have said Twin Rivers is probably a lot better than that 9 seed they've gotten. Mm-hmm. But, Van Buren to me is still that unknown. I don't know if this is the same energy they're going to bring into the Christmas tournament, but that win for Twin Rivers, surprising but not surprising.
Yeah, and, again, they've won 6 of their last 7. They're winning games, and that's what you want from your teams, just to win, go out and win your games, however you have to do it. And they may not look the greatest doing it in some of these games, but man, they were able to get this game at overtime, and they just took it to them in overtime. So a nice job there by Twin Rivers, and I think they're looking good going into this Christmas tournament.
Another team that's looking okay, and I'm kind of high on, is Bernie, taking on Bell City 64-51.
Yeah, they're missing a couple players.
Yeah.
For them to still get some wins, I don't know if those guys will be back for Christmas tournament, how long they're going to be out, but they're still, they're winning games that they need to win. They were, Bell City was missing a couple guys as well. So, I think they're, that was a game of just a war of attrition, but some short benches there. And, Bernie, as Bernie does, they just do what they need to do to win, and it's not always pretty, but they play very hard, and they're all on the same page this year with Coach Long, and I think this is a team that is going to be a good team all throughout the season.
Yeah, I think Bernie's strength is their fundamentals are very strong, and like you said, Coach Long is a very good coach. Saw him scouting that Risco Donovan game, so he's already kind of prepping, but. It's weird because I feel like Bernie should be in a better spot than they are now. And, having Kane Hobgood out, that obviously impacts your team. But I'm still high on them, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and again, it's still early in season. There's a lot of unknowns. We're gonna by the end of this Christmas tournament, we'll know a lot more. But yeah, I still think they're a good team. I like the way they can shoot the ball. They've got some kids that can rebound a little bit. They have some size, for which typical Bernie teams don't have a lot of size. Mm-hmm. So good for them to get that win over Bell City when you're missing some guys. Anytime you're a smaller school and you're missing some of your main players and you can still get a win, that's a good win. You move on to the next game, and you hope you get them back sooner rather than later.
Moving on to kind of a bigger school affair, Farmington 72, Cape Central 62.
Yeah, I've been saying all year that Farmington is a team to watch in that district. They returned everybody from last year. They took Sykeston to the whole. I mean, they took them to the mat the entire game up in last year's regular season. The district tournament is going to be at Farmington this year. And they play very well at home. So that's a team that's really going to have to be watched out for. They're the top seed in that Park Hills tournament up there. They're a very good team, and beating Cape, I think, kind of put them on notice that people are kind of seeing what they can do, and it'll be interesting to see when Sykeston goes up there and plays. I believe it's mid to late January. I'm kind of interested to see how Sykeston matches up against them, because that's a team that can cause Sykeston some problems.
What do you think Cape Central's biggest detriment is right now? Because it seems like they're starting to find that groove, find that rhythm to improve, but they're still just kind of held back by something.
I think they're I don't know if they've found their identity yet. It seems like sometimes they want to push the ball. Sometimes they want to, kind of play a slower pace. They do a good job running their offense, at least in the SEMO conference tournament. They did a good job running their offense some, but they are not a deep at guard. I mean, there's, if one of their guards gets in any kind of foul trouble or anything like they did against Sykeston, they go to the bench. That's a big problem for them. So they've got to keep those guards in the game. And I think they just need to find an identity. And I think, we'll talk some about the Cape Christmas tournament. But I think they're going to have to use that Cape Christmas tournament to kind of find an identity and stick with it, because, one day they're kind of up tempo, the next day they're kind of a slower, methodic offense. And I think they just need to find, where they need to be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you said, to all your points, I feel like Cape Central is just it's a not this year team, but what are they losing going into next year, and how can you kind of rebuild around that?
Yeah, I mean, they're losing a couple pieces, but they've got Edwards and Goliath back. They've got the young guard back. So I mean, they've got three pieces that are big there. But I'm not going to completely count them out for this year. But I mean, they need to make some improvements. I honestly, I just think it's just Coach Frazier just kind of figuring out how this team wants to play.
Yeah, and
those teams can sometimes be dangerous, because you find out about end of January, and you finally start dialing in, and you're peaking by the end of February, and that's when you want to be peaking. So I don't think there's any concern yet for this Cape Central team. I think they still have the ability to make some noise in the district tournament, but they need to find their identity and everybody be on the same page game after game. And I think that's the biggest thing for them.
So let's move on to the Clarkton Holiday Tournament. Of course, we covered that. First game on that listing that I've got down is Risco 59, Porterville 32. These are two teams playing in the BCT. So obviously I took more of a look at them. Risco is clearly favored in this tournament, one-seeded, but I feel like they just, proved who they are.
Yeah, they are who we thought they were, as Dennis Green would say. They just rolled through this tournament. I mean, and we kind of thought they might. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. I mean, they're more talented. I mean, than all the other teams in that, and they proved it. And they just did a really nice job of just showing how good they really are. Their big test is going to be, this week coming up in the Christmas tournament. How deep can they go? What kind of run can they make in that? But yeah, that's a really good basketball team, and they're a lot of fun to watch. They get up and down the floor. They can shoot it. They've got some size inside for a small school. They've got a lot of size too, and they're just a fun team to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, so Sammy Smith I don't remember if he was taken out of the game, but he did get injured in this game. So it was kind of the speculation of just okay, well, they lost Sammy Smith. How well can they do from that? Obviously, they didn't lose him in the Donovan game. He put up 35 points in that game. But from their depth, you can see that they're still all playing well together. And even if that piece might be missing sometimes, I feel like Risco can just keep rolling on that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Sammy Smith came back, had 35 in the championship game, so I think he's okay. But there's been a lot of I've noticed there's been a lot of some injuries with some players kind of leading in here to this Christmas break and stuff. I know Sykeston had one on with PJ Farmer on Friday night, and he was able to come back in and play. But yeah, there's a lot of these kind of little ankle injuries, nagging injuries, and stuff that people, we mentioned Hobgood earlier. There's a lot of those kind of popping up that we're starting to see, and that could impact some of these games as well.
I mean, hey, I consider this like all the injuries we see in football, things like that. But basketball, you're playing tournament after tournament, regular season game after regular season game. So, I mean, small little injuries like that, of course, they're going to start popping up.
Yeah.
Just kind of moving on from that, I want to talk about Bloomfield really quick just because they're another team. Bloomfield 48 over Advance 40.
Bloomfield was way behind in this game early on. They but did a great job getting back in the game. They're kind of they're really kind of handicapped. They're missing one of their big scorers, but they did a great job just kind of fighting to get back in this game and get back, not only get back in it, but get back in it to win it. They're a team that I don't think that I want to play in this Christmas tournament because they're playing at home and these guys just play so hard. And I say it over and over, they kind of play a style that's just kind of tough to you're not used to seeing. The slow it down. Advance just started settling for 3-point shots, and you can't do that. You've got to continue to get to the basket, and that's what Bloomfield was able to do in the second half, and they were able to get the win.
And I know we talked about it last week, but how stacked is Stoddard County right now?
Oh, it's that Stoddard County tournament is going to be good. I have a team that I have as a favorite in that, but yeah, I think that Stoddard County tournament is loaded this year, and it's going to be a fun tournament to watch. I can't remember if it's at Bloomfield or Dexter this year. I know they alternate it.
I believe it's at Dexter.
Dexter, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think for that championship game, that Dexter gym should be full for that game because it's there going to be some really good teams in that tournament.
Moving on, let's talk about Jackson versus Festus, 73-45.
Yeah, Jackson kind of making a statement. Festus isn't a bad team, and Jackson just kind of keeps rolling on. They put it on Dexter pretty good, and they really put it on Festus. Cole Deck's playing really well. The Ernst kid is a freshman that is getting better and better and better. They're a team that is kind of primed right now for that Cape Christmas tournament. They're the top seed there, and they look really, really good right now. They're going to be a tough team down the stretch here in the SEMO conference too. Yeah,
and I mean front loading it just off a cold deck, 21 points in the first half. I mean that's some consistency we're starting to see from Jackson that I think earned them that one seed in that Christmas tournament.
Yeah, he got hot in that Dexter game, and he still isn't missing. He's just he carried it over into the Festus game, and when he is on, they are a tough team to beat, and they seem to be clicking on all cylinders right now going into this Cape Christmas tournament, and again they're a team, they've got a ton of size inside. I mean, they're a tough matchup for most teams around here just because they're so big, and man, that's a team that could be really good.
How do you think their prospects are going to look kind of in later in the season, postseason?
I don't put much into the postseason. I mean, because they've got Cardinal Ritter in their district. It's kind of the same thing that the Cape Central football team had in their district. You got a really, really good team in your district. Now, I think they could have some success in that in the SEMO conference regular season. I mean, I look at them against Sykeston, and they're a team that could match up really well with Sykeston because they have all that height, and they handle the ball well for the most part. And, I think that will be the key is they're a team that will be patient with Sykeston. They're not going to try to force things. They typically play Sykeston well. And so that's a team I think could match up really well against most of the teams in the SEMO conference. When they match up with Cape, that'll be an interesting game. Either in the Christmas tournament again, or definitely in the regular season. Cape knows them like the back of their hand, and so those two teams, you can kind of throw the records out the window there. But I think Jackson's a team that's going to factor into this regular season SEMO conference title for sure.
And what do you think about next year?
Well, obviously they're going to be good. I mean, you lose Cole Deck, but this Ernst kid is just going to get better and better. They've got a really good JV team as well. So, I mean, Jackson's a team where they just kind of reload, and they all are very similar. Like what you see this year is probably what you're going to see next year. Very similar, just maybe some different pieces. They just kind of continue continue to roll on. But I'm really anxious to see how the Ernst kid develops, and he's a really, really good freshman. And as he continues to get better and better, if he continues to grow too, he could become a major D1 talent.
It's really funny because I think we kind of said collectively that SEMO conference was kind of down this year, but I feel like every time we talk about it, next year is when all these teams are going to start kind of popping off.
Yeah, the next year or two, what happens is Sykeston loses a lot of their seniors, and then I think it gets really balanced, but balanced with some good teams and teams that are kind of going to be building up. The next couple of years, I think, is just going to be a battle in the SEMO conference.
Moving on, let's talk about Woodland at Dexter, 78-60.
Yeah, Woodland is really good. And anybody who is kind of sleeping on Woodland, they need to wake up, because Woodland is a very, very good basketball team. And you know, they've got some height. They got some kids that can score. They like to get up and down the floor. They can press. They just do so many things so well. And they're just a very, very solid basketball team. And they're a team that I'm looking for in that Class 3 to that Class 3 District 2, I believe, with them in Scott City. That's a matchup that I am looking forward to, because those are two teams that are very similar, and I think they both can get after it. And that's a game that could, I mean, who knows who's going to come out of that game, but that's going to be a fun game.
Now, I mean, Woodland, of course, is good, but has Dexter fallen off?
Yeah, I jumped off that bandwagon. I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. I thought they should have beat Richland. I mean, losing to the games that they've lost. I mean, Poplar Bluff, I thought they should have beaten. But, I mean, it doesn't surprise me they lost to Woodland. It doesn't surprise me they lost to Jackson. I think those are just better teams. But you've lost 5 in a row. You're kind of wondering where your confidence is at right now. Fortunately, they get Malden in the Christmas tournament in the first round. Maybe they can get some things righted there. But yeah, I don't. Right now, I don't think. I still think they're not a bad team, but some of their guys that you don't know what you're going to get from them play to play, let alone night by night. So it's just you're just trying to figure some things out if you're Dexter, and who needs to be on the floor at what times, and their guard play needs to improve. I mean, a lot of turnovers and stuff in some of these games.
Yeah, and so if Kennett and Dexter could play again, like they did that first game of the SEMO conference, let's say 10 times. Well, no, let's say 5 times. We don't have to go to 10, but 5 times, I feel like Kennett takes 3 of those at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on Kennett. I've been, of course, Kennett took it on the chin to Charleston Friday night, but Charleston. People that don't know Charleston, when they play at Charleston, that is a completely different team.
It's a momentum shift.
Yeah, that is a completely different team that plays at Charleston at home in that gym than plays away, and that's just the way it's always been. And they play so well at home. They get. And plus, they when they get fired up, and Kennett beat them before. Obviously, Charleston's going to get wound up for that game and going to be ready to go. You just can't. That doesn't surprise me at all. That score. I'm kind of with you though. I think in a 5-game span of Dexter Kennett right now, I think maybe Kennett 3 out of 5. But it also wouldn't shock me Dexter 3 out of 5. I think, but they're pretty even. I think Dyson Watson is the difference maker there. You've got to be able to stop him, and Charleston was able to stop him for the most part. When it mattered, and Dexter would have to do the same thing.
Moving on, let's talk about Porterville playing East Carter, just because this is a 13-12 seed in the BCT, 48-44.
Kind of evenly matched teams, close game, and, Porterville was able to pull it out. And I think that, I think they match up again in the Christmas tournament, and we get a rematch of this, and I think it's just as close, and it could flip the other way, or, I'm not sure which way it flips, but it's going to be a good game. And you're looking at that game as a consolation quarterfinal game. That's going to be a really good game. There's just going to be so many good games, I think, in this Christmas tournament. I mean, there's just so many different games in the consolation bracket that are going to be really good games. So I think that we are, I don't know, Higginbottom had a really, really nice game. He kind of stepped up and really put Portersville on his back, and we'll see if East Carter can get more of the big guy going on the inside, the next time they play. But I think it'll be a good matchup.
Yeah, what I think I saw from Portersville, and Higginbottom, of course, had a great game. And then Zay Bogan is typically like who's having a good game for Portersville. What I noticed was a lot of missed 3 attempts. And I feel like the score could be ramped up a lot more if they just kind of went for more layups at that point. East Carter, they're there. I don't feel like this game would be as close if they do end up playing in the Christmas tournament, though.
Yeah, teams, I just settle for this 3 so much. And, I know it's a big part of the game now, but, I see so often teams that are successful are the teams that just get to the rim. I mean, you just take the ball to the rim because a lot of times you either, get the layup or points, or you get fouled and go to the free throw line. The teams that just sit out there and shoot the threes. Yeah. I mean, that's great if you can make them all the time, but if you're not making them a lot, I'm like, just get to the rim. I mean, just try to get around your man. I mean, especially the way I've seen a lot more foul calls, I believe, this year. I don't know if they're calling it closer or that's just the way, these games are being more physical this year. But yeah, just try to get to the rim and make some free throws. And that's another thing I've seen is a lot of missed free throws. Just take advantage of the opportunities that you're given and don't just sit out on 3-point line and just shoot those. But that's what everybody sees in the NBA game, and that's what everybody wants to do in the high school game.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand the prospect of it. It's that risk reward, get 3 points or get nothing. But I've seen a lot more get nothing than getting 3 points. And like you said, getting an and one off a layup. I mean, sometimes that is crucial for a game.
Yeah. And honestly, it changed the game in the Sykeston game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame cut the lead to 4 on Friday night late in the game, and PJ Farmer's able to get a steal, get to the other end, gets a layup and one, and all of a sudden, the game's completely flipped. It's a 7-point game and a 3-possession game, and now all of a sudden Sykeston's in the driver's seat in just one play, and you see it so often. And, I just like the teams that try to get to the rim and do it that way. And you can get to the rim. If they collapse on you, you can kick it out for those threes that are open. Mm-hmm. But, don't just sit around the 3-point line and just jack up threes. And a lot of these teams are shooting in the 20%. And I mean, that's just not high percentage.
Yeah. And traditionally, I feel like it's, your 3-point shooter is more of a specialty position. There's one guy that's going to be able to consistently shoot threes, but when it feels like everybody on the team is going to go for it at some point, yeah, you don't really have that specialty position anymore, but it just takes away from like the total strategy of the game at that point.
Yeah, and I know that analytics play a big part in it, and that's kind of crept into basketball, and they say it's better to shoot the threes, but in high school level, I'm not buying that. If in NBA level, when you're professionals, and it's a completely different topic than it is in high school, but high school, it always kind of feeds down. The NBA, what they see in the NBA is what they practice and stuff, as you're growing up, and I think that kind of feeds into it, and it doesn't help things, for the high school game.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen a consistent loss of identity for the big man position in basketball, but I feel like on a high school team, if he can get you a layup every now and then, I feel like that's the difference maker.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about that Cape Holiday tournament.
Yeah, Jackson got that top seed, and this was seeded before the SEMO conference tournament. So it was seeded even before the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. Wow. So, yeah, I believe it was a week before. So, you had Jackson with that top seed. You've got number 2 seed was Cape Central. 3 is Charleston, which, then you've got 4 at Notre Dame, 5 Scott City, and 6 at Woodland. And really after that, 7 Bell City. You kind of go, I think the top 6 teams are about the only ones there that I think we're going to have a legit shot. But you look at some of these quarterfinal games, Notre Dame, Scott City, and Charleston, Woodland. I think those are 2 games that are going to be, who knows? I'm picking the underdogs. I'm picking Woodland to beat Charleston, and I'm picking Scott City to beat Notre Dame in both of those and kind of shake up this tournament for the first time in a while.
Yeah, kind of the difference I'm seeing between basketball and football, especially in Southeast Missouri, is that class does not matter as much as you think it would. It might affect bench depth, things like that. But as far as like skill level potential that way, it's anybody's game. Like a class 2 school can definitely beat a class 3 school and a class 4 school.
Yeah, and in this tournament, it's just kind of always been, Jackson, Cape, Charleston, Notre Dame. Those are kind of the top 4. Notre Dame, Scott County Central would slip in there when they had Otto Porter, and that was just a different level. And some teams that they had back in the 90s with Marcus Timmons and stuff, they would win. Advance won back in 2001, I believe, or maybe 2000. They was maybe 2000. They were in the finals one year and with Coach Hall, and then won it the next year. But I think Bell City may have won it once, but for the most part, it's never really won by the small schools. It's always Jackson, Cape. But this year, I think there's a chance for the Scott City and Woodland teams. I think there's a chance for them to get in the Final Four and maybe shake things up a little bit and maybe make a run in this tournament. I think those are 2 of the teams I've got to look for, and I think those are the 2 best small school teams in Southeast Missouri, in Woodland and Scott City. I really do. And I'm real high on both of those teams, and we'll see how good they are in this tournament for sure.
Yeah, and we've been putting Scott City and Woodland up in our top 3 for like 3 weeks now, just because they're consistently good. And I feel like this is a good argument against like, well, who do you play? Because this is higher brands of teams that you don't typically play. Woodland can go beat up on Dexter, but can they beat up on Charleston? That's a different argument right now.
Right. And, Charleston, was going to pose a problem with their athletic ability, and they're going to really get after it. But I tell you, Woodland's got some guards that can handle it. They've got some size inside. They can shoot it. I like Woodland in that game. I like Woodland to beat Charleston. And, Jackson, Scott City, I don't know how Scott City is going to match up with the height of Jackson, but the physicality and stuff is going to be there. They're going to be able to match that. I think that's a game that is just a coin flip to me. And it would not shock me to see Scott City come out of that game and win that. And I would love to see a Scott City Woodland championship game. That would be awesome. I would love to see that game in the third place game if they don't make the championship. I would love to see that game because I want a preview of what that Class 3 District 2 championship game may look like. And those two teams to me are just on a collision course for each other, and I want to see how they match up against each other.
No, I think it'd be really cool to see just to watch these teams that are considered underdogs kind of move up in a pretty prestigious tournament, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And how would you like to have a Notre Dame Charleston 5th place game? I mean, that would be kind of a fun game too.
Yeah.
They've already played this year, and Charleston was able to win that game. So, and that's what got them the 3 seed in this tournament is beating Notre Dame in that game, and I would like to see them match up. I think Notre Dame's playing much better. Again, they took Sykeston to the end on Friday night. They only lost by 9. It was a very competitive game. They completely took Sadler out of the game. He didn't score. Dohan, I think, had 27. Played really, really well. Just a really, really nice game from them. They were able to slow it down. What I thought that they would do in the Christmas or in the SEMO conference tournament was slow it down, spread it out, and really kind of frustrate Sykeston a little bit. They were able to do that, especially in the second half. So I'm anxious to see how they match up against some teams here in this Christmas tournament.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to find your footing, start getting your consistency up, and I think that's what these early tournaments are really good for. Is just kind of feeling each other out, just because like it has impact, of course, these tournaments. I mean, you want to win them, but at the same time, it's not a postseason game. So it's not like you have to, a loss sucks, but it doesn't suck as much as like actually being taken out of something. Yeah. And if you have time to kind of, figure out your offense, shore up your defense, things like that, that's a good opportunity for these tournaments.
Yeah, it is. And, I feel bad for some of these teams, Oak Ridge against Jackson. I mean, there's always some big spreads here in these opening round games. And Charleston and Scott County Central, that's going to be, I think that's going to be kind of a big spread game. The Cape Central Advance could be a big spread game. That's kind of been in the talk in the media for a while about, or at least not in the media, but social media about these big, some big spreads early in the season between some teams.
Yeah. And we've seen that kind of across the board is like, between 25 to 30 points is starting to become a little more consistent in some places, which, I mean, you always hope for a close game, but not every game can be a Puxico and Thayer game. Right,
which is a great game. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. But yeah, to the point of these these large spread games, I know there's been a lot of this team is pressing at this point. This team is pressing, up 35, they're pressing. And I've always felt that you coach your own team. You don't worry about the other team. And I'm assuming the coach would have a reason for doing that. I mean, I've coached plenty, and I've been up by 35 at times and down by 35 at times. Mm-hmm. In different teams, and you just got to coach your own team. Maybe I don't think I would be pressing it up 35, but it's not my team. You just coach your own team. You play. You know what your team needs. Maybe your team needs some practice running the press and different things. Maybe that's what you're trying to work on in practice and trying to emphasize. Or maybe you fall back into a man and work on help defense or something like that. But yeah, I'm never going to question another coach and the way they're coaching a team. They typically have a reason for doing that. And I know the other fans don't like it whenever they get beat 50, 60 points and things get out of hand. But you got to worry about your own team.
Yeah, I can see it both ways. It is high school basketball. It's still in this phase of like these are children. Mm-hmm. So you don't want these games to be just like beat on games, because like that sucks. But at the same time, there is something to a coach having that kind of mindset of just being like ruthless aggression. I'm going to use my team as they know they need to be played. And I don't know. That's a tough argument to have.
Yeah, the game can be played without embarrassing the other team. I mean, you can do certain things. Like I said, I personally wouldn't press up over 30 points, but some coaches believe in that. Some coaches believe I need to go, all out this entire game because that's the mentality I want of my team. And I do. There's a part of me that understands that, but there's also a part of me that look, at some point you're going to have to play in a half court set and defense, and you kind of can work on some of the stuff you need to work on that. If you play zone, typically then play some man to man to kind of teach them some man to man at that point. And I mean, there's nothing, teams hate getting embarrassed, and I understand that. But again, I hope that these coaches are not like trying to just embarrass the other team. I hope that they're doing it for a purpose. They have a purpose for what they're trying to do, and sometimes just the talent just weighs out on one side more than the other. And sometimes you're just not a very talented team. I had a team recently that I coached that I said, look, they're going to be great kids. They're going to be great lawyers, doctors and businessmen or farmers, but they're not going to be basketball players. And that's just the reality of it. Sometimes you just don't have basketball players on your team. They're just guys that like to get out there and play and have a good time. They're just not great basketball players. And you're going to have that with some teams. And it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, you work with the pieces that you're given. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes that's just the way it falls. I to your point, I do think it is important, like, to not embarrass a team just for the sake of embarrassing a team. If you can't learn a lesson from what you're doing, what's the point of doing it?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's all. You have to deal with the fallout of your actions as you go into work the next morning, but that's all up to you at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, the coaches that do kind of run it up, they do get a stigma around them, and people talk about it, and it's not it's not a secret thing.
Well, coaches have to take heat though. That's the job.
Part of it.
Do we want to talk about the Bloomfield Christmas tournament?
Nah, let's ignore that.
It's not that important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I can't wait for this is honestly, I'm looking forward to this tournament more than I've looked forward to a Bloomfield Christmas tournament in quite a while because of the parity in it. And just the amount of good games I think we're going to have, not only in the semifinals and quarterfinals, but I mean even this first round. I think there's some really, really good games that are going to be had.
Yeah, I think, like you said, parity, but at the same time, it's. I feel like the seedings are really consistent right now. I've gone back and forth on a couple of them. It's like, should they be there? Should they not be there? But it feels like, if you put it all in a tier system of just like high fives, the tens, and then kind of the lower ones, it's all very consistent, like whose skill level is where it needs to be. So let's just start off with that first game on the bracket, Puxico and Gideon.
I've got Puxico. They're going to be a little cranky, I think, coming in. They lost to Thayer, which, hey, look, Thayer's class 3, number 5 team in class 3. They're a team that, and I think they have the recipe to beat Puxico, a big, physical, strong team who, kind of controls the inside, makes Puxico shoot from outside. I think that's the kind of the formula to beat Puxico is teams that are good in the middle. I think they're the teams that will cause Puxico the most trouble. But Gideon is not that. And I think that Puxico comes in a little cranky and takes care of business pretty quickly. Yeah,
I would say so. What I kind of gathered, like you said, from the Puxico and Thayer game is that, Puxico can't shoot 18 threes every night. And I know that's given them a little bit of a shot in the arm when it did happen. At the same time, what you saw from Thayer was, they could just bully them in the paint. Mm-hmm. They're big enough to do it, everything like that. And, Puxico, like once they started making mistakes, they was just able to capitalize on it. And I know some people are kind of miffed about some calls at the end, but that should not make or break a game for you. And I've kind of always said that. It's like, listen, it sucks if you lose a game just because of a missed call, but at the same time, you probably should have won out that game regardless. Yeah. I feel like Thayer was just a better team at that point.
I see it all the time from fans who are complaining about a call here, call there, and, if this call wouldn't have been made, that call wouldn't have been made. Well, the fact of the matter is you put yourself in that position. Mm-hmm. If you put yourself in a position where a call is going to impact the game, then you obviously, have some other issues, somewhere down the line that you should have taken care of there. I mean, there should have been something else. So, yeah, I'm not I never. That's just something for fans to make excuses for, and you see it from all fan bases. It's not just one fan base; they all do it. Whenever you lose a game, they didn't. This call, that call, they called the game too close. Called the game. Yeah, no, I don't buy into that.
No, and This wasn't a one-score game either that they lost by. It wasn't like, oh, we lost by 1 point. It was, you lost by like what? It was 5. So, it is what it is at that point. You just kind of have to pick yourself back up. And, they probably are going to come into this tournament a little bit ticked off. And, hey, that might be good for them. But I think it also shows, I'm not going to shot call any team getting that far in the bracket, but it shows East Prairie that Puxico might be mortal. Yeah.
Oh, and I think East Prairie is a team that can give them problems. We'll talk about that later.
So let's move on down the bracket. No, we've talked about this game before. Richland versus Twin Rivers for the second slate. I do not know how this one's going to go.
Oh, it's definitely a toss-up, but I'm going to take Twin Rivers. I like the way Twin Rivers is playing. I feel like they are playing a game that's a little more fluid right now. I think Richland's still kind of fighting itself on offense. I think Twin Rivers is, they can score, they can defend a little bit. Richland's going to get after them defensively, and Twin Rivers is going to have to take care of the ball. But I think if they do that, I think Twin Rivers can pull this out because I just think offensively they're a little more settled than Richland. And I think it's a toss-up, but gun to my head, I'll take Twin Rivers on that one.
I think it's very funny that the year that I say I'm not going to root for Twin Rivers is the year that they start getting more consistent. Yep. I don't know. I'm still going to take Richland for this game.
Good fight. I like it.
But at the same time, I feel like it's the most toss-up game it could be. Richland might have gotten over their slump, kind of the yips that they've been dealing with this year, but this would be the game to prove it.
Yeah.
Moving on, let's talk about Bernie and Portageville.
This is my upset alert game. I'm not picking Portageville. I'm not. I'm picking Bernie to win. But this is the game I think that Bernie is on upset alert. I think this is the first higher seed team that could knock off or could get knocked off. I think that Bernie is with some of their injuries and everything. I think Portageville is a team that could cause them some problems with getting after them defensively a little bit. I'm picking Bernie to win, but I'm putting them on upset alert. This is a team that it would not shock me to see Portageville win this game.
I think you're wrong. I only think that just because I think Bernie is going to be able to, be there defensively against Portageville. I think what East Carter couldn't do against Portageville, Bernie's going to do no problem.
And you could be right, but again, I'm picking Bernie. Bernie.
No.
People sometimes mistake that, but I am picking Bernie. But I'm just saying that this is a game that they had better take seriously.
Yeah. No, I agree, and like you said, Bernie dealing with injuries, that's gonna be a factor. Do I think it's gonna make or break this team at this point? No, not for this game. Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about Kennett at East Carter. I feel like this is basically the same game as the one we just talked about. I don't foresee Kennett losing this game.
I think Kennett rolls in this game. I know that in our selection show, I know that people had talked about this game was going to be a possible upset alert game. I just think Kennett, just from what I've seen between the two teams, I think Kennett is better, and I think Kennett rolls in this one.
Yeah, no, I mean everything we've said about Coach McBroom back in the SEMO conference, I feel like is remaining true. Like he's getting to know his squad better. He's getting to know what pieces he has, and I feel like against Charleston that was a tough loss, but at the same time, I've seen this East Carter team play, and they play decent, but I don't feel like they play up to Kennett's standard right now.
No, I don't think so either, and I think Kennett is well tested. I mean, they're playing Charleston, New Madrid, and SEMO conference teams, and I think they're going to be well tested for this tournament.
Well, let's talk about East Prairie and Holcomb. I feel like East Prairie rolls in this game.
Yeah, East Prairie. We'll just move on from that one. East Prairie.
Closer game, Van Buren and Donovan.
I think Van Buren wins this game. I think Donovan can play with them for a while, but I think Van Buren has too much in the end, and I think they pull it out and move. I think they move on and play that East Prairie Van Buren game, which I think could be a really, really good game. Oh,
I think Donovan wins this game.
Got an upset alert. There we go.
I think Donovan wins this game because I feel like that game against Risco probably ticked them off a little bit. I feel like they could have played better against Risco. Risco's got some amazing tools at their disposal, obviously, but I feel like Donovan, I feel like it just got away from them, and I feel like this is a game to come back and prove that you can still hang with them. So I mean, Van Buren lost to Twin Rivers, and I feel like Donovan could probably beat Twin Rivers too.
Nice. I mean, hey, 7-10 games. It's not the first time that's ever happened. Matter of fact, that's happened quite a few times. So would not be shocking.
I feel like Donovan's got the skill set, and I feel like they've got the experience to come in and shake things up. But Whether they go on from there, I don't know. But in this game, I think it's going to be close. I'll say that it will not be a blowout. It will be a 5-point affair. That's what I'm thinking.
The beauty of this game for both of these teams is at 5:00, and both of them have long drives to Bloomfield. Matter of fact, I think they're probably two of the furthest, maybe Kennett as well, but I think those are the three furthest, and that's a long drive and some tough roads. So you don't have to get up real early. You're not going to get back real late. You're not playing real late. So I think that's a good time slot for these teams where we're going to see their best effort.
Moving on, Dexter versus Malden.
Dexter's already beat Malden pretty handily. I don't think that there's any reason that should change. I know that I think it was last year they lost, what was it, by 50 something points in the quarterfinal game to Malden after beating them early in the year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Dexter takes care of business and wins this game.
Yeah, this isn't the Malden team of last year.
No, it is not.
But you can hang the fact that you've got a chip from last year.
Yeah, you can. Hang that on your shoulders. Yeah.
And then last game of the set, Risco and Bloomfield.
Another one I'm saying upset alert. I'm picking Risco. I am picking Risco. Bloomfield is going to be a team, though, that could cause them some problems just because they can slow them down. And, I think, Risco is going to be nervous coming out, first time coming out playing. I think they might start a little slow. I think Risco ends up winning this game and setting up a matchup with Dexter. But just, again, a game that Risco can't overlook. But I think Risco wins this game.
Okay. I think Risco wins this game, but I don't think they're going to have trouble with Bloomfield at all. I feel like Risco is primed and ready to be in this tournament. They've been wanting to be in this tournament, so I don't feel like they're going to be nervous. I feel like their fan base is so strong. They travel well. They're going to get all the support behind them in the world. And I know you're going against Bloomfield in their gym, but at the same time, Sammy Smith can put up 35 points on Donovan. What can he do to Bloomfield?
Oh, yeah. And that's fair. But I'm telling you, they're going to be nervous when they hit that floor for the first time. Something that you've been building up toward like this, they're going to be nervous when they hit that floor. And, it's going to be a little bit different than playing in the Clarkton tournament. It's going to be a little bit different than playing in just your normal gym. There's a different feel to it. And, hey, maybe they come out and they outscore them 40-0 in the first quarter, and that's fine. But I think there's going to be some nerves in there just whenever this thing's tipped off.
I just think you're mixing up the words nervous and anticipation.
Well, and that's fair.
So let's kind of do some evaluations of what we think the second round might be like. I kind of want to go down consolation bracket a little bit, just because I feel like that might be a little more interesting to think about, because, let's say Gideon loses this game against Puxico. Who do they play in that consolation round?
I've got Gideon playing Richland, and I've got Richland rolling in that one. I think Richland, that's if Richland loses that Twin Rivers game, I think that's Richland's get right game, and they're going to need that. And I think I'm not sure how far we're going to go here, but I think Richland wins that game. And
just to kind of compare, because I think this is going to end up being a repeat of that Clarkton third place game, Portageville and East Carter.
Man, that's a toss-up, because it was pretty much a toss-up. It's tough to beat a team twice. I've got East Carter. This is all in pencil, by the way. I've got East Carter winning that game, close. But again, that's a toss-up game. It's going to be fun to watch, and who knows who comes out of that game.
Yeah, I think for East Carter, right now, I feel like a lot of people are saying it's like, okay, you're East Carter. We get you. We thought you'd be a little bit better than you've been doing, but, you're here. What can you do? And I don't feel like they'll beat Kennett, but if they play Portageville again, I feel like they're going to play them all. I can't even say a lot closer, because the game was already close to begin with, but they're going to learn some of their lessons, I think, that they can take away from that game. That first game against Portageville, who wins that one? Like you said, it's a toss-up again.
Yep.
And then kind of on the winner's bracket, let's just make some assumptions. Dexter and Risco.
I've got Risco winning that one. I was on Dexter early for our selection show. I was saying I thought Dexter had been challenged, but I just don't think Dexter can score enough to win that game. I know they'll slow them down. I know they're going to cause them a lot of problems. What I think Bloomfield is going to try to do, I think Dexter can can do. I think they're going to slow them down. I think they'll be physical with them. I think that's going to cause some problems with Risco, but I just don't think that Dexter team can score enough to win that game. It would not shock me if they won that game, but there's no way I would pick Dexter to win that game. I don't think, just from what I've seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, kind of what I think about Risco is that, like, you know, it's all momentum at that point. Once they get rolling, they don't stop rolling. Mm-hmm. So if you want to beat Risco, you have to beat them very early on. Like, and if point differentials, like at the half, like maybe Risco's up 5, I think you've already taken out a bigger chunk than you think you have out of them, because they're probably going to slow down towards the end. And if you can really hold them there in that spot, at least going into the half, you've got a much better chance.
Yeah, I don't like Dexter's guard play in this game. I just don't. I think the guard play is better for Risco in this game, and I think that will be the deciding factor. But again, it wouldn't shock me to see Dexter win this game, but I certainly couldn't pick it.
Well, let's say hypothetically, 2 big point scoring teams. How does East Prairie stack up against Risco?
I've got East Prairie beating Risco. I've got East Prairie win this whole tournament. I'll just put that cat out of the bag. I think they're good. Noah Johnson averaging 30 a game. You've got Connor Markham averaging 21 a game. You can't just key on one guy. They've got size inside. They can get up and down the floor. They're guarding better. You know, I know a lot was made about, Gideon scored 72 points against them in the very first game of the year. Well, they have not allowed that since, and they've just been shutting teams down lately. Now, granted, they're not they're not great teams, but at the same time, their defense has been improving. They look good. They were here last year. They know what it takes to get to this championship game. They're hungry. They want to win this championship game. They've never won it before. I think East Prairie takes care of Risco, and I think East Prairie can win this whole thing.
I enjoy the passion, Dave.
I'm fired up.
I would like East Prairie to win this tournament. At the same time, I feel like Puxco is going to be your biggest challenge, of course.
I do, yeah. And I think that would be a great championship game.
I think so too.
I really do. And
I don't know how it stacks up.
I just think that East Prairie is a little more, set inside. I think that's I just think that Noah Johnson inside is better than what Puxco might have inside. And Burchard's going to be a tough matchup for East Prairie. But if Hancock gets going, then East Prairie's got some problems. But I think East Prairie I don't know. I just feel like this is their year. And if they're ever going to do it, they do it this year. And if they don't do it this year, they're never going to do it. It's just kind of the feeling that I have with this East Prairie team. And I feel that this East Prairie team is, after last year's championship game, they made it. They know what it takes. They've been on that big stage, so close to getting it last year. I just see them coming back this year and getting it.
You know what? I can always root for a team of destiny. I feel like this is ending up being like a Purdue or UConn situation. But I don't ask me day of who would win between these two teams, because at this point, I don't know. If Puxco didn't lose to Thayer, I would say Puxco's got this easily. But they did. Yeah. So obviously they can lose a game.
Yeah, Puxco, we've seen last year and even this year that Puxco is. They're not without their own faults. I mean, they're a really, really good basketball team, and so is East Prairie. They're both really, really good basketball teams. They both have weaknesses, and they both have things that are going to give the other team some problems, and the other team has some stuff that's going to give them some issues. I think it would make for a great championship game if seeds hold and those two teams play. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that, I just think that would be a really good game. And I just think that Noah Johnson and Connor Markham and Ty Wallace, don't forget him. I always do. But he's a really good player as well. And those are 3 really good guys, and they bring some good guys out as well. Tavion Ware's another good player for them. They just have good players, up and down, as well as Puxco does. I just think they match up really well.
Yeah. I think you've said it all, honestly. I can't wait for this tournament. It is the most exciting time of year for us all the time. Every year is just like, well, it's that small town competition. And it's so consistent. So I'm super stoked for it.
Yeah. And I think, I've got Richland winning my consolation bracket. I don't know who you have there. I think, and again, I think it almost benefits Richland to maybe lose this game or the opening round game against Twin Rivers, because I think then that gives them a path to go 3-1 in this tournament and really kind of get them set on the path that they need.
I've got Van Buren winning consolation.
And I've got Van Buren winning my 5th place. So there we go.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Like we said, we're not going to be here Thursday. We're taking a break for the holiday just because we're going to have to do so much in the coming week. But we will catch you next week. And thanks for listening.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.